I have an interest in tarot, which is starting to resurface because the Kundalini, Shakti, Yoga, Kriya intuition has been sort of pointing me towards the book that I've written already. And the other day it was automatically, I was just being led, I guess you could say, or whatever, to my Amazon Kindle page, and I was kind of fiddling with it. I mean, I wasn't, my finger was of its own accord. I know, go figure. But so my interest in my own writing, my book, and my interest in tarot is just coming back to me a little bit. So I thought maybe I'd talk a bit about that, because it has been a part of this journey. And yeah, I think there's an interesting topic there. I mean, what is tarot? I think it's when I got into tarot, and I'm not a expert, I'm not one of these. I could probably do a reading, but it would be very intuitive and not. I don't have that much experience in doing readings, things like that. But I got into tarot after. It wasn't exactly a breakup, but it was the realization that myself and this woman, we weren't going to work as a couple. This is someone that I'd been chasing for years. It was kind of like a twin flame thing maybe going on, where I was definitely the chaser and she was the escapee. And this went on for years. And I think a lot of people come to awakening not through the relationships necessarily, but through the failure of relationships, or the failure of being able to attain the one that you pedestalized, attain this idyllic person who you see as the one for you, and the failure of that, if it's been going along for a long time, that is a dark night, that is a shift. Well, it was here, and it was when that failed, when that chain broke between us, suddenly I was this kind of in this no man's land. I'd been chasing this person for so long. It was kind of like I didn't know, it was, you know what I mean? It was just, I was just kind of like a blank slate, and I was just wandering the streets. And that's when I came across tarot, and I began to just spread these cards in front of me and just, whoa, some of these decks are so beautiful. And, if you're an appreciator of art and imagery and archetypes, then everything was just bouncing out at me. And of course, what you're doing is you're getting in touch with your intuition. It's just pure intuition, I think. Whether it is meaningful or not, it doesn't really matter, but it speaks to you. It's these images are talking to you because they're so primal. They're so ingrained in every culture. Every culture has an archetype of the hermit or the magician, and so this turned into a book eventually. In lockdown, I wrote a book. It's called the Hierophant, or the Way of the Fool. So the Hierophant you could see as the ultimate wise man, the priest of the tarot, the priest, the religious figure, the top dog, and what's the fool? Well, he's at the bottom, right? He's at the bottom of the ladder. He's the fool. It's like, come on, he's an idiot. He aspires probably, right, to be the Hierophant. But actually, in my view, the fool is God. The fool is the god of the tarot. And we all start by being the fool, and we all end up being the fool. And I, as a character, even as a person, I'm not even talking about energy or spirituality or enlightenment. Have a sip of coffee here. Simply my personality, what's always motivated me. My energy has always been. Once I discovered tarot, I just realized I was the fool, and I resonate with that archetype. Let's just say that, and quite strongly, to the point in which my book became about that. It is about the journey of the fool, And I make a parallel to the hero's journey. I don't distinguish between the fool's journey and tarot, this kind of cyclical journey of unknowing to unknowing via knowing, and I think the hero's journey is essentially the same, although I'm sure, yeah, essentially the same. Well, that's the point that I make in the book. And so my my sort of subtitle, or the sentence that I prefaced the book with, I'm trying to remember if it was not C.S. Lewis that wrote it, but can't remember. Might come back to me. But anyway, one of these poets said that if the fool would persist in his folly, he would become wise. And I massively resonate with that for many reasons, but perhaps in the sense that, so the fool is just pure spontaneity. He literally doesn't know any better. He's perfect in a way. He's a clean slate. He's pure intuition. He doesn't know anything else. He's pure go with the flow. And that can be dangerous sometimes because, look, he's near the edge of a cliff, right? He can't see what he's doing, doesn't know where he's going, doesn't know what's happening, right? He doesn't know what's happening. And then something might come along, let's say society, someone might take the fool and say, what are you doing? You can't just give in to your every whim. What's wrong with you? You need to be something specific. You need to become somebody. You need to come join us. And here's a boundary suddenly. Let's take you to school, right? And now, as before, you had the instinct to, I'm going to go over here with my little bag, with my dog. And it's like, boom, oh, there's a boundary there. It's like, okay, that's weird. Hey, I'm going to boom, and there's another boundary, and suddenly it's like, no, you can't just do what you want. You need to fall into line, Here's a little carrot in the form of what you could become. Here's an image of someone with a tie like that, strangling your neck. You could become someone who works for this company, and cha-cha-ching, and the fool in his foolishness, because he's so used to going with the flow. That's what the fool does. That's the flow as well. So he goes with that flow. And he goes, okay, well, a complete faith, complete trust in life, which is our nature. And so we trust that those talking to us have our best interest at heart, and then before you know it, you find yourself incredibly depressed, perhaps even suicidal, incredibly confused, because your own foolish nature, and by foolish I mean godlike nature, has been completely stifled by a system that is not resonant with your own organic intuition. And some people get stuck in that for a long time. And some people embrace that, perhaps, and agree with that way of life, that systematic way of life, that I hated school. I mean, I hated it. I hated it from as early on as I can remember, and perhaps because I moved country when I was very young, and I ended up in a school in Spain when I was 4 years old, and I didn't speak the language, and the whole thing just traumatized me. And I don't think school is right for everyone, and I think some people end up dead because they're not happy there. And those people, we think, oh, there's something wrong with them. No, there's nothing wrong with them. There's something wrong with the system, I think. So I quit school. I ended up in my teenage years, I was in a boarding school. And one day I was like, I can't do this anymore. I packed my bag and I left, and I went home, and then I ended up at drama school. And suddenly I was happy as Larry. Suddenly I was in my element, because all I'd ever wanted to do was be the fool. All I'd ever wanted to do was to play. That is my main instinct, I think, as a human being. I am playful before I am anything other. And suddenly I was able to just be playful, and suddenly life wasn't serious anymore. It wasn't about becoming. It was just about instinct, intuition, playfulness, acting, laughter, joy, and that came into my life then and there. And And then my path, if you want to put it like that, has been one of finding more peace, more joy, and more freedom as my life has progressed. And so going back to the fool, if the fool will persist in his folly, he would become wise. I certainly persisted in my folly and still do. In a very obvious sense, in the sense that I was always made the wrong decisions in terms of what parents hope for you, what society would like you to be. Like, I just could not get it right. There was an absolute failure of being able to be anything other